Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Managed Services Monthly Education webinar, where Sharon Nichols, Client Manager at Alithya, will dive into identity and access management for Oracle Cloud EPM. For a brief background before you get started here, Alithya has more than 320 professionals who provide the full Oracle suite of services, including EPM, ERP, SCM, and HCM across many industries. We're not only an Oracle partner, but we also are an Oracle ERP, EPM, and HCM customer. Because we run our business on Oracle Cloud, our team of experts is ready to provide the right solutions to meet all of our clients' varying business needs. Our managed services team is a dedicated practice of Oracle certified consultants, 100% Oracle Cloud focused on sustainment services to provide support, training, testing, administration, enhancements, and reporting with more than 120 active customers and counting. We appreciate your participation in the series of webinars delivered by our managed services team. Please feel free to submit any questions in the Q&A chat, and Sharon will be reaching out to address them via email after today's presentation concludes. So now I'll hand things over to Sharon to get us started.
Welcome everyone to my webinar. I just want to introduce myself a little bit. I am a client manager or principal consultant, also is one of my titles here at Alithya. I have been with Alithya for a little over 13 years. I was in consulting when I started and then moved into managed services. A little bit about my background prior to that. I started way back in the dark ages in accounting. And back then it was a long time ago, back before we had all personal computers, all these things. It was all mainframes. And I always liked to hang out with the IT people. And I was always interested in, more of the technical side of finance. And fast forward a few years, and we started using some Hyperion products, a thing called Microcontrol, which was a consolidation and reporting tool that most of you have probably never heard of. And we started using that, and I really enjoyed it. We had to do everything ourselves. IT didn't want to touch it, so I got really interested in that side of things, of finance and reporting. And a few years later, I started using some other products of Hyperion, and then I had the chance to actually go to work for Hyperion. So I started about 23 years ago with Hyperion, and worked in the education department, did training. Then I moved from there to some consulting firms and did consulting, and now I'm doing support. So that is sort of where my life has gone, and I've mostly focused on the planning products, planning S-Base, FDM, EE. But I have done a lot of work in the past, but not recently, on HFM, and of course, I also use SmartView, and I do a lot of financial reporting work too. So that's sort of me in a nutshell. So I actually also a note, I actually started training. I did the training on the very first version of Planning 1.1. So I've seen it actually evolve over the years from the very beginning to what it is today. So it's rather interesting to see how far it's come. All right, enough about me. So today we're going to talk about something called access management, or what most of us call security. And security is very important because it's going to uh, make or break your system sometimes. We all hear in the news a lot about people getting their systems broken into and their data stolen, and hackers are rampant throughout the internet. So security is very important. And with the new cloud systems that Oracle is putting in place and updating recently, they have actually added new capabilities. So to help increase the security capabilities and make everything a little bit better and more secure. And especially with people going to the cloud, a lot of people are nervous about that. And some of these uh, features that they're putting in will help ease some of that uh, uh, concerns that some companies might have. Okay. So they actually have several layers of security. You can have, you're going to have most people are going to use the single sign-on. You can actually do multi-factor authentication now in the newer versions, the Gen 2 that's being rolled out to everybody. You can do, of course, different types of role-based security to each of your environments. You can separate people through not only how they can access each environment, say your production or your test, but also, of course, down to dimensional security. I can only access this entity. I can't look at my employee data, all of that type of thing. So they have a lot of different layers that you can add to your security when you set it up. All of this is now uh, controlled by what they call Oracle Identity Management. So you're going to see a lot of terms in here that you may not have seen in the past. Um, they are, I would say, evolving from what we've been as Oracle is rolling out. First of all, the what was called OCI, or not OCI, but the IDCS. And then now we have OCI, which is what's called Gen 2. So some of these terms are going to be maybe a little unfamiliar if you haven't, depending on how much you've been interfacing with the new cloud versus what you've been using in the past, or if you're on premises still, which we're not going to cover at all. So these terms, if you have questions later on, put them in the chat and I can answer them at a future time and kind of clear some of that up maybe. But the basically things, they're calling it identity management. So that's mostly what you're going to hear. Okay. And again, there everybody has to have a role. So all users are going to be based on their role in the system. Am I an administrator? Am I a user? What type of user? Things like that. And that's pretty similar to what they've used in the past. So it's just some nuances that they've changed, but not too terribly different. All right. So depending on how your cloud's set up, previously in your Gen 1, you had a couple of different things. You had My Services, which is your classic Gen 1. Now we're going to Gen 2, and you have OCI. Now they're even going to change that from what you might have had when you first went to Gen 2, if you did. And then it's going to be called IAM. So like I said, everything's been evolving over the last, I'd say, 6, 7 months, and how your security is set up, or how you interface with the security setup, has been changing quite a bit. So that's why we wanted to do this, to maybe try to help let you see some of the differences and give you an introduction. We're just scratching the surface on this. Is definitely not designed to give you an all-inclusive training on how to set up your security. It's just to introduce you to some of the topics. Okay. All right. So again, we have My Services, which is some of the screens that you would interface with. Then you have your Oracle Identity Cloud Service, which is IDCS, which I'll show you some of those screens in a minute. And then we're all moving to IAM. So you may come into your system one day and it's going to tell you in 3 weeks you're going to move to IAM. It may not call it exactly that, but you'll see this message at the top that's telling you something's going to be changing. Okay. And that's what I said, it's going to standardize to that. Okay, identity domain. Your domain is basically your environment. Previously, it would have been something like A12345. Some of you are maintaining those identity domain names as you move from your classic or to your Gen 1 to your Gen 2. And then some of you may have changed the name to your company name. So your domain may have a name like Alithya. So ours is now called, instead of a number, we had a number. Now we have Alithya Oracle. That's our domain name for our internal cloud pods that we use. So you may have moved from the classic environments to an actual name. So that's how these are managed, and that's what everything is used to collect all your environments into a place, and that's how everyone logs on. So you're going to log on to that domain or that cloud account name. Okay. The administrator is going to grant, there's an account administrator, and that's going to give the identity domain administrators access to the cloud account or the domain. So that's kind of a separate person. That's the person that basically set everything up with Oracle and said, hey, we're going to purchase this, and I am the account owner, and you're giving me this system. And then they can grant access to any of the domain administrators who then manage everything else. Your security is going to be managed through some dashboards. In your classic, which I'm not going to spend much time on it because pretty much those are all going to be gone, that's where you could do pretty much everything is from this one dashboard. You could set up your single sign-on, create manager users, uh, manage your accounts, set up your network restrictions, your metrics. It was actually very simple. It had a few tabs at the top. There wasn't a whole lot you could do. It was pretty limited to just setting up your users and saying what they could access. And that was about it. So it was very simple, very straightforward, very limited for your like super admin to use. And nobody had a lot of problems with it. It was pretty simple. We move forward and it is getting much more complicated. So now when we get to OCI, you log in and you have something that may look like this. And you have your instances or your environments that you can select and access. It gives you information about those instances as well. But if you click on your manage account here, it would take you to a screen similar to this. And this is that message I was talking about. We're getting this message in the next 3 weeks. It's going to be unified with the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Console, which is what is being called IAM. Okay. So this gives you a lot more information, your users, your applications, all sorts of, information like, how many failures, uh, failed attempts on logins did you have? You can click on some reports like your audit log and some things like this. So there's quite a bit of things you can access right here. Then we move forward to IDCS. We're still in OCI, but it's sort of an update to the previous screens you saw. If you click on user, if you click on what's, we kind of all call this the hamburger or the navigator. In all of the documentation now, they're calling it the navigation drawer. So you call it the navigation drawer. And select users, you can go to, then you're going to get this screen that shows all of your users. Okay. And up here you can see you can pick users, groups, contacts, or my profile. So if I click on one of these users, then I can manage that person. I can assign them to an instance. Uh, decide whether they're going to be a user, an administrator, whatever. I can pick all of the instances from all of the instances that I have available, pretty much manage it from that one screen, which is pretty simple. Then I can also click on this from here and go to the identity console, which lets me manage some other settings in addition to just taking care of my users. Okay. So when I do that, I get sort of a different dashboard. I still get my list of users, but I cannot actually do. Oh, I can change things with the details of the user themselves, but I cannot assign the user to a role in an instance. So I can't make, say, this first person here a user on my test system. I can't do that from this screen. I have to do it from that previous screen. So that's one of the complicated things in here is knowing exactly what screen you can do what on because it's not as intuitive as some of the other tools that Oracle has. So when I'm in here, like I said, if I've gone to the navigation, I've picked users, and then that's what I can do. I can go in here and I can do things like change their email address or name. I can set them up if they're going to be federated or not, which means I'm going to use SSO for this user or not going to use them. Some of that types of things. Okay. There's other things I can do in here is I can go to my applications, groups, and then this Oracle Cloud Services is really the place where you could go do other management of access. Uh, Seems like you would want to use this, but you actually use Oracle Cloud Services. Okay. Now, switching to OCIIAM, it's a similar screen. Uh, Again, you click the navigation users, but this time when you click this identity primary, you're going to get this message and it says click here. So if you've gone into your system and you've gone where you normally do, which is, you think I'm going to back up a minute. You think you're going to get here because you clicked on users, and that's what you were used to. And now you get this message that means they're moving you to IAM. So on here, it's going to take you then to your um, the identity console. So similar to that, the button on the previous screen where you clicked, you clicked on. Oops, sorry, trying to go back. Where you clicked here to go to the identity console. On this is going to take you directly there and you don't have any of those other screens in between. Okay. All right, and we'll see that in a minute because I'm going to show you how to set up some users. Okay. Users in the system, these are basically like the users you've had before. You have administrators. You might have power users that can do things like maybe help with reports or forms or some type of sort of administrative tasks that can do a little more than a normal user can. Then you have just your user that's going to put in data, run reports, maybe enter journals, things like that. And then you have your view users, which might be some executives that just need to look at a report, look at some data, run a dashboard, those types of things. So we still have all of those same roles. Each person's going to have to be assigned to a role. They're predefined. Those predefined roles are in each of the different tools. So planning, FCCS, uh, uh, PCM, tax, all of those different products, all use those roles, but when you're in that role, it's going to be a little bit different for what that can do. The Oracle documentation can tell you exactly what each role allows the user to do in that product. So you want to be careful and look at that because if maybe you've always been using planning and you know what that power user can do in planning, but now you're going to give someone, you started using FCCS and you have a power user over there, you want to make sure you know what a power user can do in that tool versus what you were letting, or what you knew they could do in planning, because it could be a little bit different. Maybe they can do more than you thought they could. So you want to check that before you start assigning people roles. Okay. Right. In something that's new, we've always had groups, but the groups were mainly used for you set up a native group and you set up, in your Active Directory. You could pull it in. You could use that group to add people to the group to give them, say, dimensional access. Want all of these people in a group to give them, access to, the U.S. entities, and this group gets the South American entities, whatever. So we've always had that, but this one's a little bit different, and this is new with the Gen 2. So you can actually use this to give people access to the system itself. And these also can be synced back to your identity provider, so your Active Directory of whatever type you're using for your single sign-on. So this actually makes it a little simpler to assign people to these roles because you can group them for coming as access into the system itself, not just assigning access down at the application level. So this is a nice addition. So you want to read up on that a little bit more and see how that can help you, because you want to utilize it if you have a large user base. This would be very helpful. You won't have to go into all these screens and keep adding users to different roles and things like that. You could do them all at once. Okay. Again, the predefined roles are going to basically let the system know what kind of activities. One thing I did mention that all of the all of the systems use the same type of predefined roles. So we have system administrator, uh, service administrator, user, power user, and viewer. But the EDM product does not use those same ones. So that is the exception to that rule. It has a different set of roles. Okay. Also, the identity domain administrator, which we're going to talk about quite extensively, that is not a predefined role. That is sort of a whole separate assignment of a type of user, and they are a little bit different. And it does not allow the person to use the business processes automatically. You actually have to go in and if that person is an identity domain or ID domain admin, as we call it, they have access to go in and do what I call the system work, and security work, things like that. But they don't have access to your instances, your prod, your test, until you actually go say you can have access to these. So I kind of compare that to like an IT person might have access to go in. I'm going to set up users. I'm going to set up my SSO. I'm going to set up multi-factor. I can do all of that type of thing, but I don't have the right to go in and look at any of the financial data. So that's why they separated this. They don't automatically have access to any of that information. Now, you can take this person and give them that access as well. So they could be an ID domain admin and they can be a service admin in your applications. And that's perfectly fine. But you have to take that extra step or they cannot access it. And we run into this all the time where people don't realize that and they're calling us and saying, I can't log into the application, but I'm an ID admin. And we tell them, well, you can't until you have to give yourself access to that, or someone has to give you access to that. Okay. So there's also a user called system. This is basically it's internally defined. It is set up by the software. Basically, it is only used for certain things, like the migration status reports will show that the backups use this. So I'm sure there's some other internal things that I'm not aware of that it uses. So you may see this as a username and you cannot log in with it. It's not assigned to a person at all, but you will see this. So don't be surprised when you see things being processed with this name, and wondering who the heck this is, who set this up, why is this showing up? That is why. Okay. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the ID domain administrator. They're kind of your overall, I'm going to manage the system person. Um, they are going to be the one that goes in and says who can access the environment itself. Um, they are going to be the person that can uh, also do things like I said, set up your SSO, your MFA. There's some other system settings that we'll talk about in a minute, but they're pretty much the overall behind the scenes kind of management person. And it does not count in your named user license. Only users that you actually put in predefined roles get counted in your named user license count. That might be very important for some people that have a limited number of licenses. Again, it's not a functional role. I mentioned that, and they can't work with the business process unless you physically grant that to them. Okay. And these are the four predefined roles. They all of the cloud services except for enterprise data management (EDM) that has a different set of roles that you can take a look at. But everybody else uses all the other pro- products uses this. So service administrators, that's your most powerful functional role. They can't do what the ID admin can, but they can do everything else. So they're the person that can manage your dimensions. They can set up all your, your objects in your applications. They do everything else. They cannot add users to the environments, but they can do some security settings, like giving access to prod or test, and they can do of course, your dimensional security, and that's after you've set up all your applications. And anything that's done in your dimension level security, this is nothing new. This is the way it's always been. This admin is not limited by any of the other dimension level or the application level security. So they can see everything all the time. So anybody you give service administrator access to, they're going to see everything. They're going to see all of your financial data. They're going to see all your employment data, everything, whatever you have in your application. So that should be a person that uh, is allowed to see all of that information. A power user is, depending on which cloud service you're using, again, whether it's planning, FCCS, PCM, those that power user is going to be able to do something between this user and this service administrator. Uh, Depending on the tool, they may be able to add objects, maintain objects, um, create reports, things like that. So to take some of the load off the service administrator, they can actually do some of those things. Normally, they cannot do anything with the actual dimensions, and they can't you know, delete anything from the dimensions, and they can't delete something that like a form or whatever that the administrator created. And then you have your user, which is just someone that's going to interface with the data, and the view user will just view data, reports, forms. Okay. Just some of the screens I wanted to walk you through. Again, this isn't meant to be a training session. I just kind of wanted to introduce you to the myriad of things you're going to see when you're trying to set up these users. This is when you're creating an administrator in the system, and this is with the OCI, which again is kind of going away, but some of you are still on it. When you're in My Services and you go on to your user screen, you can say add, and you can add a user, and then you can create, when you create that user, you can say whether in the identity cloud, you can give them the ID domain administrator um, tag right here. And then if you want them to be able to access, some of the other applications, your plant, your production, or your test systems, then you have to give them also service administrator access or user access or whatever you need them to be able to see in there. Okay. Otherwise, if you just give them this, they will not be able to log into these right here. They would only be able to get into the Identity Cloud, right? Another fun thing with this screen when you add a user, and this is on the other user screens as well. There's this button. This is Add Admin Roles, and there's one called Add User Roles. We internally at Alithya have quite a few pods to use for testing and training purposes. And if you're on a user screen and you click this, it gives them access to every instance you have and gives them service admin. So if you have a lot of different pods or instances, applications, whatever the term is you use, and you click these buttons, just know it's going to give them access to everything, every one of your if you have, say, a financial application and it's going to do prod and test, and then maybe you have workforce, and then maybe you have tax. It's going to just kind of do that for everything. So be careful with these two buttons right here. And then as you switch over to IEM, it's a little different screen. You go into a series of screens here. When you get to your security screen, you go to administrators. This administrator screen has caught all of us kind of by surprise because you click on it and you have to go into each of these and decide what kind of administrator you're adding. And this is always open right away. And sometimes you don't realize that this is the identity domain administrator section, and that's where you're going to add it. You start looking down here and you're like, well, where do I add the ID domain admin? So it's the top thing that's already open when you open this screen, administrators, and you just click add user and then put in the user that you're going to make your ID domain admin. You can have more than one ID domain admin, and it is recommended that you do have at least two because someone could be out sick, they could leave the company. You always want to at least have a backup. So don't just have one ID domain admin, have more than one. And then if you want to have someone that's just security, that's all they do. You can have a security administrator, you can have an application security administrator, and a user administrator. And all these have a little bit different roles. And that this is again just within the domain itself, not within your instances, your applications, pods, whatever. This is managing the domain itself. Okay. Just covered that. Um, Adding a user in OCI, it was pretty simple. You just from your user screen, you could click add. You could do that in two different places. You could do it from the screen where we saw earlier. We had little blocks with usernames. So you could do that from the first screen you get to when you do security, or you could come in here to users and click add user. You put in their details, and uh, you save it, and that's it. You don't, at the same time, you're not going to be adding them to the roles. You're just adding it to the user, or adding the user to the system itself. Username can, if you're going to do a separate username and not use their email, or even if you are, it can only be 256 characters. So if you have somebody that has a really long name, you have a really long company name, all of that email address is going to make it a long username. You need to watch that limit. It could hit the limit. Okay, I don't think I've seen that happen, but it could be a possibility. Okay. And this is if you just need to do it one at a time. There is also capabilities of uploading files. You can use a CVS file and upload your users as well. Okay. Again, here, if you're going to add a user in IAM, you're in the identity domain, default domain, and you click on users. Then you can create a user, and again, you just put in the relevant information of the email address, the name. You're again still limited to the 256 characters. Okay, this is what it looks like. And you can add them to groups here. If you're going to modify a user, you want to be careful because sometimes you will have to, depending on which, whether you're in IAM or you're in OCI, you won't be able to change things. You may have to delete them and add them back. So be sure and pay attention to that if you need to delete anybody or if you need to modify anything. Okay. And there's also timings on these. I didn't put the timing on all these screens, but depending on if you're in OCI or if you're in IAM, some things won't take effect until um, for 4 or 5 minutes. Some things won't take effect until other things have happened, like you've um, run some process that really has nothing to do with security. Like maybe you need to do just have somebody else log in, and then all of a sudden it will take effect that you made a change to that user. It's not really it's not very consistent. Unfortunately, on the Gen 2, it's better. It just seems like after a few minutes it'll work. Well, but like this one, it says after 5 minutes after any user logs in. So if you change somebody's name and nobody else logged in, then it's not going to take effect until somebody else is logged in. So it's kind of unusual to me that's happening. But that's so if you have a person that you made a change, you added something, and they're telling you they still can't get in or the change didn't make effect, just have someone else go log in or log in yourself and then see if that will trigger the change. Okay. And we're getting close to time, so I'm going to hurry up. Assigning roles, again, you do that from your different screens. The IAM screen, again, you would think you would do it from your user screen, but you do it from your Oracle Cloud Services screen. And when you click on that, it shows you your instances that you have available. You click on that, and then you assign users to that. So it's not from your user screen, it is from your actual services screen. So that's how you do that. And once you open it, you have these lists of roles. You expand them, which is not really obvious when you first open the screen. So you go to your service administrator. I can expand it. I would click manage. I might not have anybody here. I would click manage or add if there was an add button, and then I could add people or groups to this application role. Okay. So this is something you want to really pay attention to because it's not evident. Again, like kind of like with the adding the administrators, this is not always evident when you first come in the screen what you're supposed to do, but it's this little arrow right here to expand it so you can get to this and then you can manage and you can add users. So once you click on that, you get this screen and then you can show available users and you can pick the user you want to add. Okay. You can also import and export people. So I would say if you've got a lot of people to manage, you want to delve into that a little bit. A little more about the groups. You can also click on groups. You can create some groups to add. This particular one has a group of administrators. There's also this that's already in the system created for you, all domain users, and basically everybody that's in the domain will get added to this group. And you can't do any editing to this. It's just there and it has everyone in it. Okay. And again, you can sync these groups up with your identity provider, your Active Directory, whatever you're using. And that might help you manage if you have a large group base or a large user base. Okay. Um, I'm not even going to pretend to know to tell you I know a lot about this, but I wanted to point it out in case you want to look into it a little bit. This is again something new in Gen 2 using this system for cross-domain identity management. I'm just going to going to point that out there and tell you it's available, and you can use that if you think this sounds like something that might apply to you. I really don't know a lot about it, I'll tell you that. And I haven't seen anybody using this yet. Again, it's new, and haven't really gotten into looking a lot into it. But definitely, if you think that's something you might need to use, if you have, again, a large user base and you need to synchronize stuff over a lot of instances, maybe you have a lot of cloud instances, you might want to look into this. Okay. System settings. This screen that you get when you first go into your domain, you're going to get this overview screen, and I've kind of pointed out this menu over here a little bit. So you can click on your users groups. They have something called dynamic groups. I haven't looked at that very much. Oracle Cloud Services, that is something you're going to click on a lot. You can also do your reports in here. Security, settings, notifications. These are a lot of the ID domain areas you're going to possibly need to look into. Security, again, is where you can do some things with your MFA, your SSO, that type of deal. Settings, there's several different settings in here. Things like your sign-on policies, which some of those may be in security as well. You have a lot more capabilities of managing this information, or these systems in here for security now, where like your sign-on policy, you can go in there and tell it, for if you have native users that are going to be in the system, you can tell it you have to have a 25 character password, and it has to include you know 10 different things, and it can't use 25 different saved or restricted words. We have a client that's a bank. It takes me forever to get, and we're a native user, it takes me forever to get the password set up because there's so many restrictions, and the restricted words are things you would never think of. So you can make it very, very strict if you have to have some native users in the system. So you have a lot of leeway or capabilities of being able to manage these things yourself within the system, where before it was, you were kind of stuck with what you had. On this screen also, you can actually shortcut to things, creating users, import users, syncing users, and also configuring your MFA and your SSO. So there's some little shortcuts here that are on this screen. So those are nice. Those are also available in some of these other menu options, but if you're going to just hop to something, these might be better. Okay, and reports. We have some audit reports that you can use as well for your security and your different uh, modifications, things that have changed on your system. Okay, so this is a good thing to go in and start looking at, getting familiar with what's in here, what you can do, what you can't do, navigating through this. Okay. Email notifications are in here. You want to look at this. You want to watch these notifications, because when it's turned on, there are a ton. I don't have the whole screen here. There are a ton of notifications that can come out. If you have this turned on, like during when you do a clone, and you bring over security with it, your users are going to get a ton of messages. So we recommend, if you're going to clone, turn that off, especially if you're moving from Gen 1 to Gen 2. Turn all these notifications off until you get everything set up. And then I would also recommend looking at this and seeing, what do I really want to have going out and not going out. And so there's a lot of there are probably, I don't know, 30 different email notifications just for end users here. You can also do email templates. You can change what it says as it's going out, and some different things. So go in here and look at these notifications and pay attention to that. And also, if you have it turned off and someone has to reset their password, they may not get their notification. So it you just need to pay attention to whether you have it off and on, and what's on and what's set down here. Again, this is also where the password policy, that's where you can set that. If you're using SSO, you don't really need it, because that's going to be handled through your single sign-on. Audit reports, again, you can get that from your that overview screen, and then this is just kind of a log of reports that you might see. Okay. You can also set your audit retention period. The default is 30 days, but you can increase that to 90 in your default settings. You can also use REST API, not only with these reports, but for other types of security things that you might want to take a look at if you really want to get into using REST API to manage some of these tasks. SSO, we're going to go over just a few minutes if everybody can. Your SSO setup, you can decide what, you have a variety of different um, IDPs that you can use in here to authenticate against your systems. You can use single sign-on, or you can use a security assertion markup language, SAML. And you go in and you basically set it all up. You bring in a metadata file from your system, load it in here. You can set it up where it talks to each other. And it's not overly difficult to do, but we do have some people that can help you if you can't get it set up yourself. We have a couple people that can help you set it up in about 5 minutes. So if you're looking for help with that, let us know. Otherwise, it's sort of right in this under the security section under ID providers. But we've helped a bunch of people set up their, especially in the Gen 2 setups. We've gone in and set up a lot of SSOs for people, but you probably want to use that. Highly recommended. Um, you can also do more than one. You don't have to have just one IDP. You might need to set up more than one. And you also might have the case where you have an IDP and then you also have just username and password set up too. We had that the other day. Someone had just set up the IDP. We also needed to have native users log in, so they needed to just have the password, username and password option as well. So they needed to have both of those set up. And so if you need, maybe you're using two different authentication uh, capabilities, you can actually set up more than one. So you can see here, there's more than one. And in these screens, like here, they've got Okta and they've got Azure both. They're using both of those. And then here in the rule name, they have it set here and they have it set here. And then the one I was helping with the other day, you clicked here and you added another one. It's a drop down, and then they picked username and password. It added that to the list, and then we were able to log in. And so then this screen had, at the top, it had the username and password capability to log in. At the bottom, it had their SSO button. So these screens are kind of where you need to add this. This wasn't obvious that you could just click in here and add another one. So again, if you run into trouble with setting any of this stuff, let us know and we can certainly help you with that. Okay. Multi-factor authentication, that is also a new item with Gen 2, which is a lot of people are very happy for. Some of you may recognize this from the old days when we had to carry those around if you traveled any. This is now uh, basically adding something that people have been asking for, and they've got a bunch of different ways that they can set up MFA in here. They can use just something sent to your phone. You can use applications, things like that. So there are a variety of two-step verifications you can set up in here. There's several different screens that you have to kind of go through. You're going to set up your multi-factor authentication settings in your default domain screens. Again, you can just kind of look at all of the things that are available here and decide how you want to do it, even down to, how many failed attempts can be accepted before it locks you out. So you have to set those up. You then set up your authentication settings, whether it's a mobile app, phone number, security questions, emails, geosecurity, FIDO authenticator. So you've got a lot of options here. What's your policies, your notification policy, protection, compliance. So there's a lot of different screens in here that give you the capability to make this the way you need it to be. And then you add this to your sign-on rules and say, yes, I want to use this. Do I want it to be only for users, only administrators? Is it a certain group that I want to be able to have to use this and maybe not other groups? So you can do that as well. So I suggest you look into this. I will also say that I've seen that as people are being moved to IAM or Gen 2, this is being sort of forced in place by Oracle. So you may log in after a change, and all of a sudden, the two-factor, it's wanting you to sign up. It was wanting you to add the Oracle authentication app, sign up through it. You have to log on, and then we've had to log on that way and then go in here and turn it off because we weren't ready to use it. So if you run into that, keep that in mind. It's that's why it's doing it. Oracle just put it through with one of their updates, and they may just kind of force it on you in the beginning, but you can turn it off. So and you may need to turn it off. On most of these, we've had to turn it off temporarily, and then we'll go back and turn it back on. But it just don't be surprised if you see that at some point. Okay. So I know I've kind of been long-winded here, but key takeaways, basically keep it secure. There's a lot of people out there that want to get to your data, and you want to make sure they can't. So make sure the people getting into your system are the people you want in there at the right time and the right way, and take advantage of what Oracle is giving you. Like I said, they've got some quite a few new capabilities. So look through those, take it out for a spin. See if you can test some of them and see what you can use, what works for you, and make it work. You don't have to use everything, of course, but use what fits for your company. So that's uh, that's about all I have. And if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat. We will follow up. I hope you have questions. We'd love to answer those. And then, we're, like I say, we're a managed services group, like Mary said, and we're here to support clients. So if you need services, be sure and follow up with us and let me know if you have questions. And I appreciate your attention. And Mary, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you, Sharon, and thank you very much to our attendees for joining today's live presentation. Like Sharon said, she will be reaching out soon to address any questions from the chat. And in the meantime, please check out our website and follow us on LinkedIn at Alithya Digital Cafe for updates about the rest of our monthly education series, webinars, and other events. This concludes today's webinar.